Okay guys, we're going to do a video of Charley Hoffman, and Charley has a really nice golf swing, um, and we're going to do it with his driver. So this is the video on the left is from the Masters, and the video here on the right is from Houston. Okay, now a couple things, this is more or less geared towards, what would I do if I was a player, and what were some things that I would take from each of these players, aspects that would help me as a golfer. Okay, so it's more or less geared in that direction instead of what does he have to do, or what does he have to do better? Because quite frankly, he doesn't have to do anything better because he just won. Okay, so but realistically, there's things here that I think we can learn from. So first and foremost, when you look at him in the caddy view here on the right with his setup, there's a lot of things here that are very, very normal. Okay, so he has a very good setup, arms look perfect, grip looks great. Kind of working from the ground up. He has some toe flare with his left foot pointed out, right toes out a few degrees, and he has a little bit of side tilt to the right of the upper body, and he's hitting a driver, but he's not, severely. Okay, and you can kind of tell here, if you look at his left arm, it's hard to see from this view, but his left arm's kind of tucked up on top of his chest. It's not to the side. So, one of the big things, if you're having struggles with, getting your arms close enough at address, make sure where your arms are located on your chest. Are they above it? Like his left arm is actually above his chest slightly, so his arms can get closer together. But if his left arm was on the side of his pec, his arms would be more separated. Okay, so here you can see he's not done that. Now, even though he has a little bit lower right shoulder to the left, you can see that his eye line and his head are pretty straight. Okay, so there's no funky tilts to the right or anything. He's pretty centered at address. Now, when he sets up with dynamics, you can see he's a little bit forward at address, and then when he makes his move away from the golf ball, you can see his head moves to the right. Okay, and you can see how he starts to rotate to this section right here. Now, you can see his left arm is kind of kept that straightness and stayed with the chest. Okay, so you can kind of see that here. And as I move his down the line picture, you can see that left arm and that pec are kind of working as a unit. Okay, so for Golf Machine guys, that's the left arm flying wedge. So it's been maintained. Okay, but there has been a little shift to the right. Okay, and that's just for his dynamics. Now, the good thing, if you look at Charley, his face is pretty square. He hasn't rotated it open or anything like that. Okay? Now, what's interesting is if you look at Charley, we're going to go to the down the line view. And if we took this all the way back, he's one of the more flatter arm swingers, I guess you can call it. But what's interesting is his right elbow actually retracts behind his body as he rotates. Okay, so his right arm kind of pulls behind him a little bit, and as he gets to the top, you can see I draw a line right from the ball to his shoulder. You can see his hands are actually slightly underneath that red line, but they're further back. Okay, now the question is like, how does he do this? Okay, now he has some hip turn, he has some knee turn, and he gets a lot of depth, and he's actually created a little more depth by getting the right elbow behind. Now, whether or not that's important or not doesn't matter. This is something that he does. I don't recommend a lot of folks to do that, because you got to understand what you're doing in order to do this. And I'm going to kind of lay out what to do if you do. Okay, I'm going to pull him up to the top here so you can see that. Okay, so he's up here at the top. Now, you can see a little bit of his right scapula, but he hasn't, overextended or anything like that. He has a lot of rotation, and what's real important you can see that his left hip hasn't moved a whole lot off that line. If anything, right here it starts to bump forward just a little bit. Okay. Now something that he kind of struggled with, or in the past, is he would introduce a lot of path to the golf ball. So he would start, hitting pushes and overhooks, okay, and mainly with the driver. So one of the things that he's starting to do, and I have this red line right here on his shoulders, is as he starts to transition, you can see he keeps that left arm kind of on the chest. He transfers his weight forward. Okay, now one of the things he used to do, he would transfer way forward and he'd flatten his shoulders out. Okay, now with this, arm position and elbow position, that's a no-no. Because what's going to happen is you're going to start introducing interesting face conditions and path conditions. So as he comes down, you can see how his right elbow is trailing. Now, for most folks that get their right elbow to trail too much, you better have enough rotation to support it, otherwise the left wrist is going to break down and you're going to have impact issues. Okay, so you can see he actually gets pretty open into the golf ball with his body. Okay, so you can see how open his hips and his shoulders get. Okay, now this is very similar to Rory McIlroy. Okay, now in the past, his left leg would be further forward here, right, because he was essentially creating more path, but his shoulders would get very, very vertical. So now you can see as he comes through, you can see how his shoulders start to match up pretty close here on the follow-through. See how his shoulders are right about there. Okay, so he would come in and the shoulders would be too vertical like this. Okay, that's not the case anymore. So whatever he's doing now, just keep doing it. Okay, so let's go back to the top because I want to go over this whole downswing component. Okay, now because it's geared for you guys, if you come down, let's say you have this backswing, okay, which is a great backswing. If you transition and your right elbow's back, like a Jim Furyk, Rory McIlroy, these players, and obviously here Charley Hoffman, that you have to make sure that you create enough rotational force to support that left wrist. Okay, so a lot of folks, we call that a punch elbow in golf machine. So you see the left arm stays on, shaft shallows out. I'll pull this right to there. Okay, see that elbow condition? Okay, left arm still, it did come off. Okay, the left arm did come off the chest, but it's kind of later. Okay, and he's not going to keep that on the chest because he'd tilt back. Okay, but this is really, really good. Now, because of that elbow condition, so you can see how it's kind of behind the right hip, you can see how open he gets. Now, when you get here, you have to make sure that this left wrist, this is kind of a checkpoint, is not open. It should never, ever, ever be cupped. Okay, and you can see with him that's not the case. It's pretty much flat, or at least geometrically flat. Okay, and another checkpoint for this is his shoulders are pretty square, hips are pretty open. This is his condition. Now when I draw a line off that left heel, okay, you can see that he's created a lot of rotation, push, in order to achieve this. Okay, see that? As he comes all the way through. And he kind of straightens his legs late, which is great. Okay, it keeps him in his you can call it posture, but it keeps him in his inclination. Okay, so right in here he's extending his legs a little bit late. So it's a really rock solid golf swing. Okay, he doesn't have to do anything. For most folks out here that get this elbow position, they struggle with the rotational component of it. But guys like Charley Hoffman, Rory McIlroy, and Jim Furyk, that's not the case. Now they all have different backswings, and that's just a trademark. Okay, so for you guys, this is a really good condition to have. Now, would I recommend this backswing? Yes, I would. And one of the reasons for that is because the hands get further back behind this right shoulder, which is really, really important for, number one, in order not to have, you know, a path that goes across the golf ball. It really helps to get your hands deep. Okay? Now that doesn't mean get them, you know, low. It just means get them behind your right shoulder. Whether or not the hands are high, you know, that's another point. But we want to make sure that our hands are deep behind the right shoulder. That encourages hip rotation and body rotation. Okay? Now, if you're struggling also with hip rotation and impact, you can also notice that he hasn't straightened his right arm out at impact. Okay, so he did not run out a right arm. Okay, it's another golf machine term. And like I said in previous videos, you know, I like some of the terminology that the golf machine uses. Okay, and I use it more for reference than anything. And you know, we don't have to just, you know, build some machine here. We just use it as reference, and now everybody understands what it means. So when you look at Charley Hoffman here at impact, you can see his right arm is bent, right? And I'm not going to go through all the hand angles to forearm angles. It doesn't really matter for you guys, but you can see his hips are open and his shoulders are open. That supports a right arm that's bent. Okay, so if he was basically closed here, you know, that would make some issues with him starting the ball on line, and he'd have completely different right arm conditions. Okay, so if you're a player that struggles with good contact, making sure that your hips are open, and at this point you should have, you know, your hips forward, right arm bent, left arm somewhat on the body, a little bit feeling like it's to the left, is a good thing for you. Okay, and that's something that Charley does. So, you know, outside of that, this is such a good golf swing. You know, it just hits nice, stable draws off the tee, and you know, he's going to win more for sure. So, you know, just keep an eye out when you have a chance. Watch, you know, watch his routine as he comes into it. He's very deliberate, and it's pretty consistent. So this is a good one to emulate. Okay, guys. So let's just kind of cover those things real quick. Okay, so for you amateur folks, we'll go back and we're going to look at a couple little things. So the first thing I said was that he had a very, you know, stable eye line. Okay, so he didn't have his head tilted way over to the right. Okay, it was pretty centered. Now I don't mind a little tilt with the head, but no more than, you know, 5 degrees is necessary. And then secondly, that his left arm was on top of his pec, on his left arm. Okay, so in order to do that, you can put maybe a glove underneath your left arm, but that's a good way for a checkpoint so your arms work closer together. Okay, and then also when he makes a backswing, you'll notice that he takes it away with his pivot. There's a little push off the left foot, takes it away with his pivot, turns into his right side, right, and that's what's happening. Okay, it's not my opinion, that's just what's going on. And you can see as he does that, his hands go in, okay, and that left arm stays pretty much the same continuity. Okay, so if you're struggling with how to make a backswing, this is pretty much what you want to do. Okay, and if you're a slicer, this is definitely what you want to do. All right, we don't want to start manipulating the face. We don't want to under-rotate our hips. And we for sure don't want to lift our arms up. Okay, we want to take it away with, you know, we can call it the bigger muscles in the movement. Okay, and then lastly, when we look at the top of the backswing, these are the important things: is that we get depth of the club head and the butt end of the club behind the right shoulder. Okay, now if you can have it up here. Okay. I just wouldn't have it too low. That becomes a problem. Okay, so hopefully this makes some sense. You know, this is a real easy one to talk about. There's just too many good things that are going on in this golf swing. Okay, so hopefully you guys have a great day and enjoy the week.